Welcome back to Immigration Flash Updates. I'm here with you today because there's something critically important we need to discuss. Something that's affecting millions of people right now. And honestly, most of them don't even realize the changes that have already taken effect. If you're watching this video, chances are you or someone you care about holds citizenship in more than one country. Maybe you were born with dual nationality. Maybe you earned it through marriage, through naturalization, or maybe your children acquired it automatically when they were born abroad. Whatever your story is, what I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes could fundamentally change how you approach international travel, how you handle your financial reporting, and in some very real scenarios, it could even affect your ability to move freely across borders without facing unexpected delays, questioning, or penalties. We're now well into the year 2026, and with this year has come a wave of regulatory updates that most dual citizens still haven't fully grasped. These aren't theoretical policy discussions happening in government offices somewhere. These are active, enforceable regulations that are being implemented right now at airports, border checkpoints, and financial institutions around the world. And the people who are being caught off guard are everyday travelers, honest people who simply didn't know that the rules had shifted beneath their feet. Before we go any deeper into this conversation, I want to ask you for something. If you value clear, straightforward, fact-based reporting on immigration policy, visa regulations, international travel requirements, and the geopolitical developments that directly impact your daily life, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Drop a comment down below and let me know whether you currently hold dual citizenship and if any of these recent changes have already created challenges for you. And here's the thing. If you have family members, friends, colleagues, anyone in your network who might benefit from understanding these updates, please share this video with them today. The mainstream media isn't covering this information in the detail it deserves, and the people who need it most are often the last ones to find out. Now, let me be very clear about something from the start. The regulatory changes that have been introduced throughout 2026 were not designed with the intention of punishing dual citizens. They weren't created to make your life harder or to target immigrants unfairly. What these changes are actually designed to do is tighten verification systems, improve financial transparency across borders, and close the gaps that governments around the world believe are creating security vulnerabilities or enabling fraudulent activity. The challenge, and this is where ordinary people get hurt, is that when systems become tighter, when enforcement becomes more rigorous, people who are genuinely trying to follow the rules, people who have no intention whatsoever of doing anything wrong, can still find themselves caught up in bureaucratic tangles simply because they weren't aware of what was now expected of them. Think about it this way. A single missed form, a passport that doesn't perfectly match the information on another identity document, a trip booked without carefully checking the current validity requirements for the destination country. These might seem like small details, minor oversights, but in 2026, small details are creating significant consequences. Travelers are experiencing delays at immigration checkpoints. They're facing unexpected questioning by border control officers. In some cases, they're being hit with financial penalties that could have been completely avoided if they had simply known what to look for and what steps to take in advance. What I'm going to walk you through today isn't meant to scare you. It's not about creating fear or anxiety. What this is about is creating clarity. These rule changes are impacting millions of people who live across borders, who work internationally, who study abroad, who are building their futures in more than one nation. And if you're one of those people, you absolutely deserve to know exactly what's expected of you when these requirements apply and what practical steps you can take right now to avoid running into problems down the road. So take a deep breath, stay with me through this conversation, and let's move through this step by step together, with calm, with clarity, and with the facts you need to protect yourself. Before we dive into the specifics of new reporting requirements or the updated passport procedures that are now in effect, we need to establish a solid foundation. What does dual citizenship actually mean in practical real-world terms? Dual citizenship, which is sometimes also called dual nationality, means that you are legally recognized as a citizen by two different countries at the same time. Now, This status can come about in several different ways. Some people are born in one country to parents who hold citizenship in another country, which automatically gives them a claim to both nationalities from birth. Some individuals marry foreign nationals, and through that marriage relationship gain citizenship in their spouse's country while still retaining their original nationality. Others go through the formal naturalization process after living and working abroad for many years, and depending on the laws of their home country, they're able to keep their original citizenship even after becoming naturalized elsewhere. And in many situations, children are born overseas to parents who hold citizenship in one country, while the birth takes place in another country that grants automatic citizenship based on birthplace. From the very moment of birth, these children are dual citizens without anyone having to actively apply for that status. For the overwhelming majority of people, dual citizenship is genuinely an advantage. It makes international travel significantly easier because you have more flexibility in which passport you use and which borders you can cross without needing visas. It keeps families connected across international borders, allowing you to maintain ties to both your country of origin and your country of residence. It preserves cultural identity and heritage, which is deeply meaningful for many families, and it opens doors for education opportunities, employment possibilities, and long-term security options that simply wouldn't be available if you only held citizenship in one country. In the United States specifically, dual citizenship is generally accepted and recognized. The U.S. government acknowledges that you can hold nationality in another country without automatically losing your American citizenship. There's no law that says you must choose one or the other in most circumstances. But here's where the situation becomes more complicated, and where many people start to feel overwhelmed. Having citizenship in two countries can sometimes mean that you're subject to two different sets of legal obligations. Two different governments may require certain information from you. Two different countries may have completely different rules about passports, about travel documentation, about tax reporting, about military service obligations, and these rules don't always align with each other. They can sometimes directly conflict. As technology continues to advance and as countries around the world share more data with each other than ever before through international agreements and digital systems, the infrastructure that tracks international travel, that verifies identity, and that monitors financial transparency has become increasingly interconnected and sophisticated. That's precisely why these 2026 updates matter so much. They're not about targeting immigrants. They're not about punishing people simply for holding more than one passport. What they are fundamentally about is security. They're about fraud prevention. They're about making absolutely certain that identity documents are accurate and that financial reporting is transparent and complete. But when enforcement mechanisms tighten, when verification systems become more sensitive, people who don't fully understand the current rules can accidentally create serious problems for themselves without ever intending to do anything wrong. A form that wasn't filed because you didn't know it was required. A passport that expired sooner than you expected because you didn't realize the 6-month validity rule. A bank account in another country that was never disclosed to tax authorities because you assumed it didn't need to be reported. These situations don't typically result from intentional wrongdoing or criminal intent. They most often result from a simple, honest lack of awareness. And that's the gap we're working to close today. That's why this information matters so much. Dual citizenship itself is not a problem. Holding more than one passport is completely legal in the vast majority of circumstances. What truly matters is awareness. What matters is accuracy in your documentation. And what matters above all else is honesty and transparency when dealing with government authorities. If something feels confusing to you, that's completely okay. Immigration law is genuinely confusing, even for professionals who work in this field every single day. My goal here is to guide you through each of these updates, calmly, clearly, and without creating unnecessary panic. Now let's talk about one of the most significant areas where dual citizens need to start paying much closer attention, and that's reporting requirements. Over the last several years, governments around the world, very much including the United States, have dramatically strengthened the systems they use to track financial transparency and prevent the misuse of international banking systems. This effort is not specifically about targeting dual citizens or immigrants. It's primarily focused on stopping fraud, preventing money laundering, combating tax evasion, and shutting down the illegal movement of funds across international borders. But the reality on the ground is that when these rules become tighter and when enforcement becomes more aggressive, ordinary people with straightforward financial situations sometimes get caught up in the enforcement process, simply because they didn't understand what needed to be reported or when those reporting obligations were triggered. One more critical thing to keep in mind is passport validity requirements. Many countries around the world require that your passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended date of entry or even your planned date of departure. Airlines are required to check this rule before allowing you to board an international flight because they can face substantial fines if they transport someone who is later refused entry at the destination. So even if you're thinking to yourself, well, my passport still has a few months left on it, that might not be enough. A gate agent at the airport or an immigration officer at the border may see the situation very differently based on the 6-month rule. Renewing your passport early, well before you actually need to travel, is almost always safer and smarter than waiting until the last possible moment, especially if you hold 2 passports and you're planning to switch between them while traveling internationally. Staying calm, staying prepared, and planning ahead prevents the vast majority of problems long before they ever reach the airport check-in desk or the immigration counter. Another area that has quietly but significantly changed over the past few years involves security checks and biometric verification procedures at international borders. Passports around the world have begun incorporating increasingly advanced security features. Many now contain digital chips that store biometric data. Facial recognition technology is being deployed at immigration checkpoints. Fingerprint scanning has become routine at many borders. All of these technologies are designed to protect identity, prevent fraud, and make it harder for people to travel using fraudulent or stolen documents. You may have noticed new automated machines at airports that scan your face, capture your fingerprints, or read the digital chip embedded in your passport instead of relying solely on a human officer manually stamping your passport. For most travelers, these systems actually make international travel safer, more secure, and in many cases, even faster because the verification process becomes more efficient. But these same systems also mean that mismatched information, inconsistent data, or discrepancies between documents become much easier for authorities to detect automatically if your name is written differently on 2 different passports. If your date of birth records don't match exactly across systems, or if your past travel entries and exits don't appear consistent when different databases are cross-referenced, the automated verification process may flag your record for additional questioning or manual review. That doesn't automatically mean you did something wrong or that you're suspected of fraud. Often it simply means the system wants a human officer to verify that 2 different records truly belong to the same person, and that there's a legitimate explanation for why the information doesn't match perfectly. Technology is now catching small discrepancies and inconsistencies that older manual systems from years past often simply ignored or overlooked. And sometimes that technological scrutiny can feel intimidating or even frightening when you're the person being pulled aside for extra screening at a busy airport. In moments like that, the single most important thing you can do is stay calm and stay completely honest. Answer questions clearly and directly. Show all your documents when asked. Explain briefly and factually why something might look different or inconsistent. Maybe your name changed after you got married. Maybe one country formats names with the family name first and the given name second. Maybe you renewed your passport recently and the document number changed. These are all perfectly legitimate explanations that immigration officers hear regularly. Now let's address a topic that genuinely worries some dual citizens, and that's military service obligations. Not every country in the world requires military service, but some nations still maintain compulsory military service laws for their citizens, and those obligations can extend to dual nationals who may not even live in that country full-time or who may have never lived there at all. If you hold citizenship in a country that has mandatory conscription laws, you could technically be expected to fulfill those military service obligations when you visit or reside in that country, especially if you fall within the eligible age range for service. For many families, this reality comes as a complete surprise. Someone may have grown up entirely in another country. They may barely speak the language of the country where they hold secondary citizenship. And then they suddenly discover sometimes when trying to visit family or when renewing a passport that they are still considered eligible for military service under that nation's laws. It can feel absolutely frightening and deeply confusing, especially when those obligations conflict directly with work commitments, educational plans, or family life in the United States. From the United States perspective, dual citizenship alone does not automatically create a legal problem. However, serving in certain military positions, particularly in command roles or in sensitive positions within a foreign military, or engaging with a foreign military under specific circumstances, especially if there are political tensions or security concerns between the countries involved, can potentially complicate your status and raise questions about your loyalties or your eligibility for security clearances. These cases are relatively rare in practice, but they're serious enough that they deserve your awareness and careful consideration. If the other country where you hold citizenship has military service requirements, the best approach is not to panic and not to simply ignore the situation and hope it goes away. Instead, contact the embassy or consulate of that country directly and ask clear, specific questions about your status. What are the requirements? What are the age limits? Are there exemptions available? Many nations have formal exemptions, deferments, waivers, or special rules specifically for citizens who primarily live abroad or who acquired citizenship through parents but never actually resided in the country. Transparency and proactive communication are always your safest path forward. Now, let's talk about children and the unique challenges that dual citizenship creates for families. Because dual citizenship very often begins at birth, and parents sometimes don't realize just how important early documentation and proper record-keeping truly are for their children's future. When a child is born outside the United States to a U.S. citizen parent, that child may still be eligible for U.S. citizenship from birth depending on the parent's history, their physical presence in the United States, and other specific circumstances outlined in U.S. immigration law. At the same time, many countries around the world automatically grant citizenship to any child born on their soil, regardless of the parent's nationality. That means a baby can become a dual citizen from day one without anyone actively planning for it or even fully understanding that it's happened. The challenge doesn't usually appear immediately. It shows up years later when the child grows up and needs formal proof of citizenship for various purposes. If parents never reported the birth to the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate overseas, or if they never obtained formal documentation confirming the child's U.S. citizenship, that child may face unexpected and sometimes heartbreaking barriers when they try to apply for a U.S. passport, when they want to enroll in certain schools or programs, when they need to travel internationally, or when they're required to prove their identity and citizenship status for legal purposes. It can feel absolutely devastating when a young adult discovers that their documentation was never properly completed, not because their parents did anything wrong intentionally, but simply because their parents didn't know the process existed or didn't understand how important it would become years down the road. The good news is that awareness and education help tremendously. Reporting a birth abroad to U.S. authorities as soon as possible, keeping organized copies of all important records and documents, applying for passports early rather than waiting until travel is imminent, and making absolutely certain that names, dates of birth, and other biographical information match consistently across all documents. These steps protect children from unnecessary stress, confusion, and barriers later in life. If today's update helped you feel even a little bit clearer or calmer about your own situation, I'm genuinely glad. And if you found real value in this information, I want to ask you to do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Immigration Flash updates for more serious fact-based in-depth analysis on immigration policy, visa regulations, international relations, and the systems and structures that shape our globalized world. Leave a comment down below and share your own experience, your questions, or your concerns. Your story might help someone else watching this video realize that they're not alone in what they're going through. And if you know someone, whether it's family, friends, or colleagues, who holds dual citizenship and might genuinely benefit from understanding this information, please share this video with them today. Thank you so much for trusting me with your time and attention. I'm here at Immigration Flash Updates because the reality is this. The rules have changed in significant ways, and not everyone knows it yet, but you do now. And that knowledge gives you power, protection, and the ability to move forward with confidence. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next update.